How do you strike the right balance to ensure that personalized features is something that the user really needs?
True. So there's a difference between personalizing and customizing.
So for this interview, the topic will be personalization in UX. So my first question is, how do you approach understanding the diverse needs and preference of users to create personalized experience?
So first off, I would say that you need to always understand your user before you start on a personalization effort. But the second thing I would say is you don't want to personalize an experience just to personalize it. You should have it be connected to like a goal, a business goal or one of your major goals, because otherwise it's going to be hard to measure whether or not the personalization you're offering is increasing the value of your product. And I mean, your goal could be to like, increase the or like decrease the amount of time it takes for a user to do task, or to make a conversion, or just the overall impression your users think of your product, like in terms of trust or reliability. So I think having a specific goal before you start in terms of like a KPI you want to measure, and then that way you know what you want to achieve with personalization, and so you can kind of pick what type of personalization you want to offer, because there's so many different ways you can try to personalize your application or your product. So yeah, that's what I would say to start that. That's where I would start.
So it's not for everyone. Really need to be clear that you need it.
True. I mean, I think a lot of products can benefit from personalization, and there's a really wide, like, you can start off with really like basic ways to personalize your app, and then there's very advanced ways. So you can do things like, you know, a short quiz that captures a little bit of what your user is interested in when they first like open your app, and that's like super easy. You're capturing your own data and you're using that to increase their experience, and that's a great way to get started. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have like, a machine learning model that is like capturing and profiling thousands of touch points across your product, and then you're using that data. So there's like a wide spectrum of what data you're going to use to personalize, and then where you're going to offer that personalization. So I think just knowing what your goal is, and then trying to think about, okay, what type of personalization and what type of data, like where am I in terms of like data maturity to be able to achieve that. If you have a product that doesn't have thousands of like data on like touch points on like what your user have been doing, you're not going to be able to offer like the type of personalization that some other product might be offering, and that's okay. You just like you need to cater to what you can do, and then make sure that the reason you're doing it is a good reason. And because if you can measure it, you can prove that you've created value there, and then you'll know you're successful. And if it's not creating value, you can tweak it.
You already mentioned one, you mentioned a quiz, but any other specific methodologies or tools you find effective in gathering user insights for personalization purpose?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do, but you can do things like using geolocation, so knowing where the user is, catering what they're if it's like news, offering local news or offering local products, or things that have to do with their location. Or you can offer alerts based on location. That's more like geofencing. So basically, like, maybe when I drive within a certain range of an area, if I say like, oh, I want my phone to remind me to pick up milk at the store, and then when you get close to the store, your phone goes like, hey, don't forget the milk, and you're like, oh, great, that's awesome. I set that up, that it like reminded you at the perfect timing. So geofencing is cool because it's all about timing. You can do profiling. So basically, you learn this requires more advanced data, but if you have a huge database of like the types of users, you can start to see like how they segment out, and you can use those segments to personalized experiences. So like if you notice like there's a correlation between, oh, this demographic or this type of user tends to do this behavior, and then they tend to look for this, you can offer that to a user ahead of time, so you're kind of like anticipating their needs, so maybe they'll be impressed because they'll be able to find something that they were going to start looking for, but they hadn't quite like, thought of it yet, maybe. So, and then you can also do things where like let's say we're working on a product that's not super, like you're not trying to sell something on your product. Maybe it's like a business software. You can use role-based personalization. So if, maybe, oh, I work at this agency, and maybe the managers at the agency see a different platform experience. It's a little bit tweaked towards like the tasks they have to do, versus like if I sign in as an individual contributor, then my dashboard looks a little different because maybe I need different documents for HR, or I'm more interested in different things to see at the top of the page. So there's a lot of different avenues you can go down towards approaching personalization.
And personalization often involves balancing between customization and overwhelming users with choices. How do you strike the right balance to ensure that personalized features is something that the user really needs?
True. So there's a difference between personalizing and customizing, because the way I think of it is like personalized experiences have to do with like the system is the pro of it is that the user doesn't do anything and the system knows information and gives you, except for maybe like the quiz situation, but with minimal effort the user is getting offered personalized choice. Whereas with customization, usually that means the user can manually tweak their experience to how they want it. And then the pro with customization is the user has complete control and they can get things exactly as they like them. And then the downside of that is that sometimes users don't really know what they want, or like you said, it can be overwhelming to try to like tweak, if you could imagine, like if you had to tweak every single thing on your computer to like look a certain way before you could use it, that would be really frustrating. So the computer just does, you don't over customize for things where your users aren't going to want to do that.
Okay. So for example, I don't know, your iPhone that lets you change your picture, your calendar, and the way you need it, that's customization.
Yeah, exactly. So actually a really good example is if you use an Android and it has like the Google Material UI. I use a Google phone, so it's cool because if I change my background photo, like the screen, like your home screen, if I switch it to a photo, it will let me switch the UI colors for like the entire like system of the app of the phone to kind of like match the photo I chose. So like for example, I have a picture of my dog and it's like got grass and my dog in the middle. And when I switched it to this photo, it was like, do you want to switch the UI? And it kind of offered like this really like pretty complementary green. So like all my menus and stuff like match my phone. And that's a really clever way to customize the experience because one, I was just customizing the wallpaper, but it made it feel way more personalized because now it feels like, oh wow, my phone looks like so like it's perfect for me because I like the green and it matches my photo that's mine. But at the same time, I didn't have to do a lot of work. Like I didn't go in through and pick different like 5 different shades of green and like what color should I didn't do any of that. That would be over customization because
Exactly.
even though
Okay.
there's a lot of control, it's like too much work for the user. But then there's a balance because they let you switch your photo and then like gave you this like really cool personalized experience. So that I think that would be like a good example of like a sweet spot of letting a user customize something but then giving them like not making them feel overwhelmed.
Okay. You already mentioned this a little bit in the first question, but how do you think that the evolution of technology like AI or machine learning influence the capabilities or possibilities of personalization in UX design?
Oh, I think it's like just exploded the the opportunities to do personalization, which is a little scary, but also it's very powerful, I would say. So, machine learning's been around for a while, but it's just a lot more accessible. And then people are selling products that help you do machine learning better and artificial intelligence better. So I would say the good thing is it's going to be more accessible and easier for people to set up without having to have like having to have like a full staff of like engineering. Like maybe you can buy a product off the shelf that helps you with those tools. But the downside, I would say, is you're going to have to be a lot more careful about like the over personalization that we were talking about. So one, not or over customization, like over personalization, where the downfalls can be things like offering outdated information, which, if you don't have like fresh data coming in and revitalizing that source, you're going to, the user might see something like, say, if you were on Amazon and you bought like, this is actually a real example that happened to someone I know, but they bought like a toilet seat cover, which is like, it was a one-time purchase because something broke and they fixed it. But then like for the next week, they kept getting like toilet supplies. And it was just like really annoying to them because they're like, I already solved this problem. I bought something and it solved the problem. And it's like, I'm not interested in this product. So that was kind of like an outdated recommendation. And then you can also get into like with AI, I think it's really easy to get into the creepy or like the no diversity type space where you're seeing too much of the same thing because it's too good at recommending stuff and it's not giving you enough variety, which can
I
lead to
know. Being
like
there.
opposite of the opposite of engagement. And we see that in social media. Like people get bored of the ads because they're like, I see the same 4 ads over and over again, and like they're relevant the first time you see them, and then you see them over and over and you're just like, I hate these ads so much.
No, and it's like you mentioned, you already solved the problem. You look at once, you buy it, you have it. Now move on. And
Yeah, exactly.
everything is still on that. Yeah,
Yeah, and then it can also be creepy because if the AI if so users don't mind tend to not mind if they can see the relationship, like I bought this and now I'm getting recommended similar things. And that makes sense because they're like, oh, I see how you got that information. But when users don't see the connection. So especially like, you have those stories where people feel like they're talking about something and then all of a sudden it shows up, or they search for something on one device and then it appears as a recommendation on a different device. And sometimes when there's not a strong connection with how that information got from one place to another, it can creep people out, and
I
it
know.
has the opposite effect because now instead of being like pleasantly surprised, you're like, whoa, this is weird, I don't like this, I feel uncomfortable, how does it know this, or like is it listening to me all the time?
I know. Yeah,
You
that's
gotta
pretty.
be careful. That's like you don't want to go so far that you have a backlash effect.
Yeah. And do you have any example or any project when you encounter any challenges or limitation associated with personalization?
I would say the trouble with personalization in the project that I've worked on is kind of trying to balance different roles. So the way we've done a lot in the project I've been working on most recently, it's very role based. So there's a lot of different people who have a specific function and they use the app in a certain way, and then someone else uses the app in a slightly different way. So like we have people who are more like viewers and they tend to review a wider amount of content because they're more like leadership roles, and then you have people who are contributors and they're actually inputting data, but they tend to be looking at a smaller segment of the pie because a lot of people contribute, and then it creates like a wider dashboard effect. And then the issue with that sometimes these different use cases are not really clear cut. Like we support multiple organizations within the same application. And so what happens is choosing how, you could talk to users and then you decide like, oh wow, it'd be really great if we could customize this experience because it'll save them time, or it'll, you know, increase the amount of the ability that people complete this task successfully. But then what happens is maybe that's only true for one segment or one organization, and we've had that happen, and we have to really like drill down and figure out, is this something that we want to personalize, or is this going to create like too much management. That's another issue is like management. Like, okay, say we personalize for say we have like 20 organizations using this tool and we personalize for all of them. Can we maintain that level of personalization? Because it's not like you just do it and you're done. You have to continually keep track of all the different the different CTAs or how the different ways you're approaching or the copy or how you're doing it. You have to maintain that and make sure it still makes sense and continually to test to make sure nothing is broken and that it's still working. And so the wider you go, if you can manage it, like if you have the right team and the right tools in place where you can manage that, that's great. But our team is small and also the tools we're using don't really have a lot of opportunity to auto manage those types of things. So sometimes we've dialed back personalization just because from a management standpoint, it was going to be too much.
And with this project, have you used anything related to AI or machine learning? And how?
Not with this project, no. I would like to work with AI though. I think it would be interesting.
I know. I think finding that balance that you mentioned, when not to overwhelm the user
Mhm.
and not to let go and with everything that you can do with AI, and just know what is the exactly thing you need and no more.
Mhm.
I think maybe it's difficult to find.
Yeah, it's like a sprinkles or like whipped cream on your dessert. It's like the
Exactly.
right amount is like so nice, but then too much is just like gross.
Exactly. And sometimes you just don't think about it when you're doing it and you go too much.
Yeah, it's easy to go, I think, too far, especially if you're excited about design and the technical opportunities you have with like some of these new tools. It's exciting to be able to offer them these perfect experiences, but then, if it's not what they want, then you're not
Then
really
what's the point?
you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sydney.